I spent most of my 20s and 30s in and out of prison. Now, at that point, some of you may want to start hanging up. But the reality is my role was in and out on a Sunday because I was a volunteer prison chaplain. Look, I even have my pass to prove it from all those years ago. My role there was very much to deal with the human. It was to ask the human questions and to involve that person in the future landscape, to make them feel as if there was a possibility of tomorrow. I met the most incredible people as you can imagine, but one that always comes to mind is wonderful old Eddie, or Eddie as the embezzler, as we began to call him. Eddie the embezzler and I spent many Sunday mornings together. One that comes to mind was sitting on a very rickety old wooden bench in B Division in Pentridge with those blue stones in front of us. And the two of us sitting there talking about the world. Now, Eddie was a CEO in a previous life. He was about almost 1.8 meters high. He was slim, he had perfect hair, he was always well manicured, and even wearing his green tracksuit, he still looked literally $1 million. Which wasn't surprising because I'm still sure to this day he had $1 million parked away somewhere, but another discussion for another day. I remember somewhere towards the end of his sentence, we had this really interesting conversation, which was one that I repeated many times with many other inmates. We talked about the reality that the person that Eddie was that brought him to prison was somebody perhaps they didn't want to carry on with because it brought him to prison. We also talked about the stark reality that over the past few years, as he and I got to know each other, that there was a very different Eddie that was surviving in prison. He had to learn a whole new set of skills, a whole new rhythm, a whole new routine. He had to behave and act differently so that he could survive and somewhat thrive in that prison environment. But the reality for us was that Eddie was about to get released, and he needed to figure out who he was going to be when he got released. He needed to figure out the best of who he was before, not all the stuff that brought him to prison. He needed to take the strength of character that he'd built over the past few years, and he needed to move forward. And we needed to understand what that tomorrow landscape might look for him and give him an appetite to want to create it. That's not dissimilar from our journey this morning and our journey generally in business. We need to understand where we came from, take the best of that, forgive and forget it, and then also move into today, who we are today. But you and I, importantly, and you've done that by showing up for this conversation, need to think about who we want to be in the future. My name's Maurice Mislowski. I'm a business futurist and have had the pleasure of doing that for the last 30 odd years. I work around the globe with a number of clients, corporations, big, small startups, and all kinds of others. My role with them is to provoke them to think ahead, to think forward, to understand what a future landscape might look like for them and what they might be able to do right now, this minute, to begin to profit from them. I want to share some of those insights, some of those foresights with you in this conversation. We're going to have some time along the way to catch up, to talk, to get to know each other, to answer some questions and to learn from each other. We're also going to meet a special guest. And then towards the end, I want to show you how you can become more involved with the program, with me, and how we might be able to work together. So this morning, our role very much is about looking forward with and for each other so that we can begin to innovate our businesses and our lives. Now, at the bottom of your screen, somewhere down there, you'll find a little chat button. What I'd love you to do is to use that throughout our conversation this morning. But if you will, I'd love to give you a couple of clues, a couple of things to use it for. So firstly, if you're making a comment, and I'd love you to make them right throughout our conversation, can I ask you to precede that with the letter C, C for comment. And if you want to ask a question, then please do. I'll try and answer them along the way. I'll get to them at the end. Can you put a Q before it, the letter Q for question, so that I know that's our conversation and that's what you need. So we're going to use the chat at the bottom, to be able to get to know each other a little bit better and to be able to share thoughts and information. So the first thing I'd love you to do, seeing that you have come to this conversation about innovation, about understanding who you are and what you do and what you are capable of doing into the future, I'd love you in the chat portion below is to spend just a minute and to put into that chat 3 things that you believe need to be innovated, 3 things about your business or your life that you came specifically this morning to figure out how to innovate. So I'm looking to see lots of people typing away and lots of comments in the chat button. I'll give you just a minute to put some comments in there. It would be great if you could be as specific as possible. So we want to innovate the business, of course, but what specific elements of the business? What is it you want to do? Is there a program? Is there an activity? Is there a product or service that you want to launch? I'd love to know what it is behind the scenes that you came this morning to try and get some innovation nuggets around and about. So there's a comment there around new technology. And certainly that's something that we're all grappling with. So we will spend some time this morning looking at technology and trying to understand its role. I'm also going to talk about technology when we get there in the realms of it being a tool, of being something that you and I use and not something that we necessarily have to live with all of the time. But I'll make more sense of that as we get to that a little bit later on. Leanne's given us a comment of new normal. And the new normal is a really incredible conversation. I've heard the word normal used a lot, and I've also heard it used in the context of looking back. I keep hearing these things in the press and from other people about going back. The reality is that we can't go back. Like Eddie the Embezzler, there's no purpose in going back. The world behind us just doesn't exist. It's a romantic notion of it. All you and I can do is to go forward. And the comment about normal, as much as I understand it, I use a very different word. I've never wanted to be normal. I don't know anyone that wants to be normal. My clients don't want to be normal. What we want to be is extraordinary. So for me, the word is rhythm. And I think what we're missing at the moment is exactly that. We're missing a comfortable rhythm that you and I can live the best version of our lives to. So for me, the word rhythm is the one I use to replace normal. I'm looking for a rhythm, a beat and a tempo that makes sense to me, that I can keep carrying on. So thanks for those comments. We'll come back to them as we work our way through the conversation. And please keep adding to them. That would be terrific. Now, think about this. A really strange thing I want you to do for me now. This object shouldn't come as much of a surprise to you. It's a shoe. I took it literally off the bottom of my foot. You're lucky we don't have smell-o-vision. You don't have to go through that. But the reality is that this shoe is something that you and I know a lot about. For some of us, we have hundreds of them. If you're like me, you only have a few pairs, but we all know what this object is. What I want you to do at the bottom in the chat again is I want you to come up with 3 things that this shoe can be used for if we're not using it to put our foot in and walk with it. So again, let's forget about what we all know this thing is to be used for. It no longer has that purpose. We want to repurpose or recycle it. In the chat bottom below, can you give me some ideas of what you might use it for if you're not using it for a shoe? So we have somebody using it for a dog toy. We've got somebody using it for a phone, a shovel, a drinking vessel. There's always a drinking vessel. What a wonderful idea, Naren. Thank you. And we've got a flower pot as well. So please put in there some thoughts about what it is that you want to do with this shoe. If we can't use it for what it is, so we're going to hold loose change in it. I think that's an incredible idea. Although we're talking about getting rid of some of the coins in the last couple of months, so we're not quite sure how long that will carry on. And there's a form of measurement from Rebecca there as well, and growing seeds, which is something we've all started to do in the last 6 months or so. Now, and I love the comment about Max Smart. Absolutely. Max Smart was the character in the 60s in the television that, of course, used the shoe to be able to speak on. It was the precursor to our mobile phone. Now, the reason for dragging you through that shoe exercise is this, that you and I look at our business so often and all we see is the shoe. We see it exactly as we think it will be. We see and use it for the purpose we first imagined it for. But we rarely take a very different look at it. We rarely take the view which says, well, maybe this thing isn't relevant anymore. What do I need it for? But bits and pieces of it may be useful. So we might then instead use it for other things. One of the things that comes across in this is the notion of we've all thought about the shoe itself, but did we think that perhaps we don't have to use the entire shoe? Maybe we could use the shoelace. Maybe we could take the material out of it. Maybe we could reuse the rubber. Maybe there's something in its parts that is more useful than the whole in this case. And again, it's an example of what I want us to do this morning. I want us to walk away from the object, your business, your life, whatever it is you came to think about and to innovate. I want you for our little time together to have a different perspective on it. I want you to think about what that thing might be as seen by other people, as used by other people, or perhaps even recycled to become something else, something very, very different. So, I want to take you through then the notion of what innovation is. One of the things that I believe in strongly is if we are going to do anything, regardless of what it is, and this morning it's a conversation about innovation, we need to understand it from its nuts and bolts. We need to take it apart. The word innovation is far too big. It's used by many, many people in so many different ways to mean so many different things. And it's almost impossible when somebody says to you, as I did only a few moments ago, what do you want to innovate, to think about such an enormous word and an enormous ramification. So let's break it down. And that's what I want to do with you in this next little piece, break down innovation for you. I'm hoping that you have a pen and paper with you. And again, at the end of this, and certainly in your email, you'll find over the next day or two, a URL that will bring you back to this conversation. But let's have a look at what innovation is. For me, there are three types of innovation. So when I'm working with a client, the first thing we try and do is determine the innovation that we are more likely to do. Now, the first type of innovation is incremental. Incremental is someone like Sam a couple of weeks ago. When he began to take apart his business and began to look at what needed to be innovated, what needed to be changed, to be updated, whatever that word is, the first and easiest and ripest fruit for him to pick was looking at what he currently did, at his processes, at the way he answered the phone, at the way he engaged with clients, at the way he bought his products and services, really looking at everything he did and taking each one of those and asking incrementally small changes, what could I do? Asking himself, when he sent that quote out yesterday, was there a step perhaps he used that he hadn't used before? Was there a way he could save that file that made a bit more sense and made it easier for him to access next time? What lessons has he learned that he could apply to the next time and the next time and the next time? To me, incremental innovation is a muscle that you and I have to flex and have to continue to grow. It's the constant thinking about what's different. What have I learned? What's changed and evolved? How can I make small step changes to what I'm doing? That, I believe, is actually the most incredibly wonderful thing to be innovating in your business for you and all the people around you, to gift yourselves the ability to continuously rise in what you do, to learn from what you've done and evolve it. There's also evolutionary innovation, which is looking outside of your industry, taking something from somebody else's industry or some technology used by other people and bringing it into your industry or your business for the first time. So being done before, lots of lessons to be learned from it already. We can pick up some shortcuts from other people that have done it. All we need to do is to change it across and use it for our purposes. So we might be looking, for instance, at an app, putting an app together because it makes sense for our business. And in that app that will go onto a mobile phone, we know there are lots and lots of examples from other businesses. We might find one that has a skeleton, has a frame, has a way of referencing, a way of people engaging with it, things that we find that are incredibly wonderful. And we'll use that as a template to move it into our business. So that's evolutionary. And the third rung of innovation is revolutionary. And that is something that many of us will not do in our lifetime, or perhaps only do once or twice. Revolutionary is the first person to think of the microwave oven, the first person to do anything. You have literally changed the landscape of the entire industry or the world. Now, that doesn't mean it's not something that we can strive for, because we certainly can get very, very close. The reason that I hold back on that is because too often when I work with clients, talk to audiences, or work in the media, everybody thinks that unless it's something huge, audacious, something that we've never seen before, it's really of no merit. It's almost a waste of time doing. And I would strongly argue the exact opposite, that our mindset should be about incremental, small, deliberate changes every single moment of every day. Then looking outside of our industry, outside of our business, to see what else is happening and seeing if we can bring it into our business. And then, with a percentage of the time remaining, 10, 15, 20%, can we revolutionize it? Can we change it in such a way that we really do take market advantage? So they're the three types of innovation. So I would ask you, as I ask all clients and audiences, to categorize it, to make sure that you are comfortable, that in fact you are capable and competent to do all three. And again, not to stop doing things because you think they're small or inconsequential. They're in fact nothing of the kind. They are absolutely vitally important. Even if nobody else ever sees it, it makes your life much easier. Again, breaking down this notion of what innovation is. Another of the tools I use is what I call the innovation business landscape. The innovation business landscape is really understanding what elements of our business can we innovate. So we looked before at the types of innovation. I'm now going to answer the question I'm asked often, which is, well, what about our business needs innovating? How do we chunk that down so that we can have a really good idea of, we do a little bit of this in here and a little bit of this in there and some more in that, and this one's fine and that one doesn't need tinkering with. So let me show you. There are in fact 8 elements, 8 sections, 8 activities in your business that I, with my clients, are always looking and asking the question of, does this need innovating? The first of these is the management. Is the management structure, the human structure of the business, appropriate to the way the business is going to be in the future? Is it perhaps too hierarchical? Are there too many managers or middle managers? Are there enough of those? Is there a system in place for how people manage themselves? It's really asking the questions and seeing if you can innovate around the idea of management, the people, making sure that everybody's coordinated, all the tools and resources are together and useful and appropriate for what needs to be done moving forward. So one of the elements, this is one of your 8 boxes, is spending some time looking to see whether you can evolve or innovate your management. Another is strategic. Strategic really is the plan that you have. It's how you see yourself getting from where you are now to where you need to be, to where you want to be into the future. Is your strategy still appropriate? And we've had lots of examples, lived examples, you and I, in the last 6 months of how heroically we've had to lift ourselves and to prepare new strategy because we are now facing a very different world. Also, of course, the one that many of our minds first go to is products and services. How do we evolve or innovate those? And what is different about what we currently offer into the what we might need to offer into tomorrow and beyond? In the next set of slides, I'm actually going to show you, I'm going to break down products and services for you a little bit further. Again, I'm trying to chunk through all of these, really make them bite-sized so that we can attack, we can look at just one of those things, tinker with it, be happy with it, put it on the shelf for a minute, take something else down, tinker with that, and put that up on the shelf. It takes away the overwhelming nature. So products and services. The fourth is the process, the way that we do things, the step-by-steps that we do things. One of the things I found through pretty much every business I've ever been involved with is there is too much process. We need to simplify it. We need to get rid of the steps involved. You need to look at it absolutely from the viewpoint of your customers, the person doing that process who knows nothing about you, and to see whether she or he is able to manage it. And if that's internal, look at it from the viewpoint of a new staff member that doesn't understand where everything is or how it's always been done. Is the process still right? The better your processes are, the more fine-tuned your processes are, the easier it is for you to grow because everybody can follow them consistently. Your social. Are all your social elements right? In other words, is what you're saying to the outside world really how you want to be represented? Are you being seen in the right places online? Are you having the right conversations? Are you attracting the right people into your social aspects of your business? So can we innovate or grow our social background, make it more relevant? Marketing, which breaks down again into the 4 Ps, product, price, place, and promotion. Is our marketing appropriate to tomorrow? Or, again, as I find it most often, it was really appropriate to yesterday, meaning we're just doing the same old thing and hoping it still works. We really need to be mindful consistently that our marketing is facing forward and that we're innovating it constantly. Again, incremental changes at this point, small changes as marketplaces change. Technology. Do we have the best technology at hand? Are we able to make good use of what we do? Technology is more than just the things that we plug in. Technology is an old-fashioned word going back to the 1600s. It really refers to the process of work itself. So I tend to use it in a much broader aspect. And the last is business and pricing models. I worked with Karen about a year ago, and we had this conversation about business and pricing models. One of the things that came to her afterwards was that she was selling clothes. She was actually somebody that went into your office, brought you a suit, bought you a tie, a dress, or whatever else, and made it appropriate to fit into the corporate world that you were working in. One of the things she came out of our conversation in this business and pricing model was that the difficulty she had was selling a garment by garment opportunity. In other words, somebody would buy the jacket and then think there wasn't enough money left over for the tie, and perhaps it would be a couple of months before they needed something else. Instead, she decided that she was going to bundle it all together, sell it like a club, where they just paid, it was about $300 it worked out per month. And for that, they got a box, a number of garments specific for them, choose 1 or 2, send back the rest. Business and pricing models, that changed her business tremendously. She grew a subscription business literally out of the realms of what she had before. Now, there'll be lots of opportunity for us to go back and to make sense out of that and to work through the others. And I'll share that with you when we get a little bit further down the track. But the last for me of the landscapes, the broad landscapes of what do we innovate, really comes down to this notion of understanding what a product or a service is. So if we're a gardener, what are we selling? If we're a bookkeeper, what are we selling? If we're a doctor, what are we selling? If we're a mechanic, what is it we're truly selling? And even though most people would answer that with a product or a fixed word, the reality is that's not true. A product is made up of 4 layers. The first, for me, is the core. It's the why of we do something. And I would continuously ask you why. Why are you in business? What's the never-changing benefit, service, or outcome? In the last few months, you and I have had to work away from the normal products and services, the normal way that we deliver things. And we've been forced to do that. But our compass for that, the way that we've made sure that we stay true to the end goal, is by constantly being able to answer why we do something. Why we do something. So for me, of course, I talk a lot about innovation. I talk a lot about future. I talk a lot about provoking people into understanding that there is a tomorrow that they're in control of. But why do I do it? It's because I believe that the human nature needs us, requires us to have a goal, to have something ahead that we're journeying to. Only by having that and having that strongly embedded inside of us do we get up every morning. That's why I do what I do. And that's the core. It's what I'm looking for when you and I work together. That manifests itself in the physical product. You put branding behind that, you put quality behind that, you put benefits behind that and features, and you begin to tell that story to your public. There's also the digital layer of your product. Again, all of these things can be tinkered and changed once we know the why. There perhaps is an app that you might be able to have or change. Your website needs to tell the story and reach your audience. The wearable devices, the watches, and all sorts of things which are becoming more popular also need to be part of that landscape. The user experience, frictionless, is what we spoke briefly about making the journey a client has with you, both online and offline, really not have any potholes or any bumps. It's smooth all the way along. And the platform that you show it on. There's also the additional things like the service that you provide, the deliveries that you provide, the payment options that you offer, the installation terms, if there are any, and the social good that you do, and of course, your environmental footprint. All of those things come together to form the product and service that people are buying from you. Even if they don't say it, it's what they're thinking. And you need to be thinking ahead of them, incrementally, changing each one of them and making sure they're relevant to where you want your product and service to be. So, I asked you earlier about the sorts of things that you wanted to innovate. I now want you to go down into the chat box below, and I want you to put in there for me a comment about what's stopping you from innovating. You obviously know what you want to do. Why did you come this morning? What is it that you're hoping that we can do together that will take you through that hurdle, through that roadblock? So if you can pop down into the chat box, what's stopping you from innovating? So we have comments like time and resources, and of course the old one, which is where to start. All of those are, of course, incredible reasons. We also have dollars and we have time. So time seems to be coming up quite a few times for a number of you. The hard lesson for me, for you, is that time is an excuse. We only have so much time in our day. We allocate time to whatever is appropriate, to whatever we think is a priority. Again, this step-by-step through innovation that we're doing this morning, to me, is really prioritizing things and saying that this thing in my life, this new product, this new service, this new idea, this new process deserves the priority of my time now. And then I can reprioritize other things to bring into line. It's a really tough thing to do. As a small business owner, I know exactly the overwhelming nature, like walking through mud. There's so much to do. But this innovation process, to me, is one of the things that I do, in fact, to help me to overcome that burden of time, of resource, of money, because I'm absolutely crystal clear about what needs priority at any particular time. And I also know everything else is backed up behind it, ready to have its turn in the sun as soon as it's appropriate. And I found that with so many clients, that getting crystal clear about innovation gives them exactly that freedom, that aha moment, and that ability to breathe again. I don't know about you, but as a small business owner, I sometimes find myself holding my breath, overwhelmed by the amount of things I need to do. I want to share with you briefly where innovation comes from then. So innovation to me is really about being able to come up with that idea. Where do I get it from? Again, we're often too insular. We're often in our own world, and that makes perfect sense. But to innovate properly, we need to get beyond our world. We need to be thinking broader. So innovation for me actually comes from a whole lot of places. The first one of these is an attitude. I'm talking about your attitude. Having worked with tens of thousands of people around the globe, the audiences for me, the clients for me, really fit into two very easy camps. Those that believe and want to believe in a future, and those that have that Arnold Schwarzenegger belief that it's predetermined, it's horrible, and why plan for it? Honestly, if you're in the Arnold Schwarzenegger camp, there's nothing I can say to convince you. There's nothing about innovation that's going to change your mind. But I'm certain all of you online are online because you believe in the former. That is, that you control your destiny. You are able to make choices. And it's through your attitude, to me, is really the first place that we begin to find opportunity and innovation. Some of the simple questions I get my clients to ask is, what's worked that you'd like to do more of? It's a simple homespun question, but we don't stop often enough to ask the question of ourselves and also the people around us. What's working? What should we do more of? And of course, the opposite to that is finding out what's not working and what do we need to stop. I worked with Mary and her business about 2 years ago. She sells agricultural foodstuffs for farms. She's quite a large provider. We had this workshop, a very similar one. And one of the things that we talked about was this question. And I've always said this question alone put my children through school. What do you go home screaming about? What is it that infuriates you after doing something that just keeps bugging you? I put out the challenge to Mary and her team to spend the next 2 days figuring out what it is that bugs them, what they go home screaming about, ask their clients and their stakeholders the same question. When I met with Mary a couple of days later, she had an incredible smile on her face. It was literally like there was a ton of bricks taken off her shoulder. And she told me the story that how quickly they had put what she thinks is a couple of $100,000 onto her bottom line by asking that question. Do you know what she found? Incredibly, that a lot of their stuff comes in from telephone orders. But the telephone orders will be taken on a piece of paper by whoever answered the phone. And then they went and they transcribed it into the computer. And then that got sent to dispatch. 3 steps, when really they could put it into 1 step and take the telephone order immediately online and then send it out for dispatch. Now, I know you're all saying that's easy, but I take you back to my shoe. They were so used to doing it one way that nobody stopped to smell the roses to see if there was another way to do it. There's also, of course, creating a culture of possibilities around this. The notion that your entire business, even if it's just you, has to be constantly open to possibility, constantly open to looking at a new world. I also want you to make it an every minute conversation. Innovation is not something you do on the last Friday of every month or when you join innovation and do it as a process. It's an every moment of everyday activity. We also get innovation from blogs, from looking at blogs. I'm hoping all of you have keyed into the blogs that are around your industry. I want you to go out and just type into a search engine the top 10 blogs in plumbing or in business brokering or in accounting and see who is writing what about the industry. You don't need to agree with them. In fact, if you do, I think it's a bit sus. But what you do need to do is to learn from them, see how engaging they are, see how the marketplace is riding with them. So this notion of blogs, and of course, I'm hoping you'll go to my blog, which is at morrisfuturist.com, and spend some time there as well, learning about what the future looks like. Another one for me, and I argue with my fellow futurists about this all the time. Again, I said to you 2 camps before, we're in 2 camps about this as well. One half, led by me, thinks science fiction is an incredible stimulus, and another half, left by some of my mates, think it's the worst, most vile thing that Hollywood ever did to us. But when you look at science fiction, it's the writing or the dreaming of something that doesn't yet exist that begins its life as a story. And that story comes to life because you and I, the reader or the viewer, have taken that to heart. It's exactly what's happening with Elon Musk. It's exactly what's happening with many of our great philanthropists at the moment. They dreamed about something. They've always had a hankering to do it, and they're now able to achieve it. We also need to look at some of the major epochs. As a futurist, which is where I really bring the greatest difference to an innovation conversation, as a futurist, I'm able to speak about what the world will look like into the next minutes, days, months, years, and decades. In fact, for some clients, I'm out to 2100, believe it or not. But for all my audiences, all my clients, and for you, the 3 things I know we need to be mindful of is that we are moving into an era where wellness and humanity are the #1 port of conversation. Our products have to be able to answer that challenge, regardless of whether it's a product or service. We're also now beginning to invest heavily into space. And as we saw in the 60s, that when investment goes into space, the flow onto that into manufacturing, into other industries, and into what you and I do is tremendous. So I'm expecting a lot of flow on from our new space technology in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And the thing that's riding at the moment is this autonomous age. This is not about autonomous cars. It's about technology. It's about a way of making sure that the customer is always front and centric, that your technology is picking up the cues and curating a specialist experience for that client or that customer. Again, more opportunity for us to deep dive into that when we get to speak one-on-one. It's also by looking around at new technologies. It was really only 2 weeks ago that I was doing a future of agriculture conversation. And one of the people in there, Ollie, in 2 weeks we've become such firm mates. Ollie's in Adelaide and he has a vineyard. One of the things we talked about was how he monitors the land, physically knows when there's enough water, when there's enough when there is enough fertilizer, when to pick and do all those sorts of things. And he talked about a product called CropX, which is that device that you see. It's about 3/4 of a metre high. You drill it into the ground by hand, pop the button, and it talks to a satellite, and it begins to send messages from your Earth, literally, translates them up to the satellite, which is then sent back to your mobile phone. And it's now empirically telling him whether he needs to put more energy into the soil, whether he needs to fertilize it, whether he needs to, how deep the roots are. So there are all sorts of technologies that are changing the world for us. I also think everything old is new again is an adage I've long lived by. Only yesterday, I was working with a group of hoteliers, and we were talking about how a hotel really positions itself for 2021 and beyond. In the conversation, I put up this slide, and we began to reminisce on purpose. The old days when hotels and motels first became a reality was about 100 years ago, and they were built, especially the hotels, the local motels, were built because cars moved from home to a journey to somewhere else, needed somewhere to sleep, and then again night by night. And they are now assembling a list and a thought process of what did people do in those days when they went to those facilities, so that we can update them and use them for things we might do today. There's also a notion I have that in the future, really only 3, 4, 5 years away, that this will be the workplace formula for many of us. 40% of our workplace will be made up by permanent staff, people on our books, 9 to 5, so to speak. 25% will be gig workers, people that come and go because of specialist skills. And 35% will be technology that we use to achieve our ends. If you use that formula as a rough rule of thumb, that changes you. It changes your product, changes your service and your business, and again is an incredible innovation tool unto itself. These few slides that you're looking at actually are a part of my 52 Imagine the Possibilities slide deck. It's actually a set of cards that are digitally available for purchase and also a physical set of cards. And each one of them is meant to be inspirational for them. I use them with clients. Clients find them tremendous. And the comments I get are often more about how they are using it. They'll put one onto a desk, they'll talk about what it means, and then look at how they might be able to apply their thinking or their business to that particular postcard. And then I challenge them to put 2 or 3 together. And the thing you and I need to remember in all this conversation about innovation is it's never perfect. But with what we know and what we have, it works for now. That's always my mantra, because you and I have agreed already this morning that we are going to incrementally change our business second by second, minute by minute. As soon as we know to do something better, we're going to do it. So we need to have that mindset that we are constantly evolving and innovating. So I'd love to take a quick poll if I can, just to get a barometer of the room. I want you, if you will, to just answer below the question, simple question, does innovation make more sense now? Now that we've broken it down and looked at its elements, I just want an understanding of whether it's making more sense as to what innovation really is for you. And I'd love you again, just down at the poll at the bottom, to just a simple yes or no to give me that indication. Just another few seconds, and that would be incredible. Thank you for that. We've got the percentages up really high. We're almost at 60% of people who have voted. Thank you. I feel like I'm doing a telethon. Thank you for that. So what we have at the moment, as you can see, is thankfully 100% of you have said that just looking at this as a step-by-step process, understanding the elements of it and being able to break it down, helps you to understand what innovation is. To me, that's a big part of our journey together. It really is what I believe you need to do. It's what over the last 30 years I've proven time and time again, that the only way to tame the beast of innovation is to break it down, chunk it down, look at it step by step, take a future gaze to it, not a past, understand where we're headed, and then to put strategy and tactics and then action into place. So thank you for that. That's an incredible result. So for me, there is then, out of this work, I've put together a 7-step toolkit. I've been asked forever, the things that I do with people, the things that I normally stand in front of a room or in front of a virtual screen and do with people, can you put it into a program so that we can follow, so that other people can use it, and so that it makes sense for you step by step? And that's this 7-step toolkit that I've put together. It is breaking down, as you've just seen, chunking it down into its various steps. So the first thing, taking all the ideas, all the things we've discovered above, and then really putting it through a funnel so that we begin to ask ourselves the question more and more about, is that innovation thing right? Do we want to do it? Should we do it? Will we do it? How do we do it? Getting closer and closer. And these 7 steps take you through the large funnel until we get to the bottom with an idea or a new business or a new product or service. The first is really, how do we choose amongst all of those incredible ideas we've come up with from the things we've looked at above and the many, many other things that I still want to share with you down the track. The questions that I use, and lots of others, but the 3 simple basic questions that I find people are using over and over again is, if you don't do it, will it be obvious? So by not doing it, you're actually causing yourself harm. If you do it, will it make a big difference? And I've had lots of people that have answered that both ways. It's a really good idea. But right now, at this moment, I don't have the time, using that word correctly now, the time, which means the priority, to do that. So it's really not going to make a big difference. I'll put it a little bit further down the queue and come back to it. And the third is, if we ignore it, and lots of us in small business startups ignore things because we don't have the time or the effort or the ability, or we don't think we do. If I ignore it, is it going to come back to bite me? And if the answer is yes, then we need to go back and we need to be able looking at it, even though it's uncomfortable and we don't know how. Step 2 for me, I've reworked this, and I've called this Don't Brainstorm, Get Drunk, and it seems to work tremendously. Now, I'm not advocating alcohol, although sometimes it helps. I just don't like brainstorming. I find that often, as a starting tool, what you're getting is a polarized opinion. You're getting the loud voices. You're not really getting everybody involved. So for me, I've always preferred a softer approach. I prefer getting people to write things down individually, one by one, using a whole lot of other tools, which I'll share with you later on, that allow an individual to come up with their responses. And then, of course, we go back to brainstorming it somewhere down the track. So there are lots of things that I think we can do in that initial stage, which helps us to formulate whether it's a great idea, whether all of that stuff really makes sense, whether in fact that's the idea we want to carry forward with, and whether that now is where we want to head. I've also got, as you could imagine, a whole lot of tools, a whole lot of charts, a whole lot of fill-ins, a whole lot of to-dos, and all of that comes with these steps. The other thing that you must do, and I find too often that that's not the case, too often that people are not doing it, is that they're not asking the question of what's happening now. What's happening now? So they've done all this research, they've gone away and they've got really excited, but there's this bubble of time since they started to today. So ask yourself, and again, a series of questions that I'll guide you through as to what is actually happening around the world right now around that idea or that product. The next step for you, of course, is to listen, and that's to listen to the world. I'll share with you how you start to give people the idea of what you want to do, how you find the right people to share it with, how you listen to them actively and allow them to share their ideas and their thoughts. I'm not saying you need to agree, but I absolutely firmly believe that you need to be hearing them. Too often, the only counsel we've taken is our own, and then all we're getting is one very, very shallow, narrow view. And then the next step for me is even though all of this seems to be great, even though it seems to be a really good idea, we need to ask ourselves the cold, hard question of, is it worth fixing? Just because I can, just because it's a great idea, doesn't mean that I should be doing it. And I could sit here for hours now and tell you the number of people that have gone through the process and got to this stage and decided not to go ahead, which is an incredible gift to them, because there are lots of other things they'll do instead, and they'll take this innovation funnel and do something else with it. But that idea at this time doesn't make sense. So we have been cold, hard and calculating about whether we should move forward. And for the next step then is for you to be able to say in 1 minute succinctly what that idea is. Because I know when you can do that, that the idea is crystal clear. It's absolutely formulated, it's absolutely ready for its life and oxygen. And then the last step for me is this beta test. Now, I never believe in going live or straight away. I believe in feathering it out, which means doing it slowly. So I've developed a 90-day strategy that clients follow time and time again. And that 90-day strategy says that we do a little bit of this, and the little bit of this is 1 to 30 days. As you can see, it's laid out. 1 to 30 days, we're really just trialing the idea. It hasn't gone live to a very big audience. We're just making sure it makes sense. We've got the systems, protocols, practices in case. And then the next 30 days, we do a beta test, which is we take it to a small portion of the public, learn our lessons, tinker with it. Then the next 30 days, we spend reviewing all of that, making sure that everything is as it should be, getting buy-in from our stakeholders, our staff, our clients, all sorts of other people. And then we adjust and we build, we decide if we're going to go ahead, and then we go into wide release. That's a 90-day strategy. So what we've looked at so far this morning is really an encapsulated version of the strategies, tactics that I've seen so many people use over the decades, that there are countless stories of people that have been able to chunk down innovation for themselves, that literally have that step-by-step, follow-by-follow, and all of the other things that you need to do in order to be able to take that great idea, or even to find that great idea, and then to turn it into a success and into a profitable next steps. So I want to now have a look at just one more poll, if I can get you, just as a way of cleaning up that conversation and really understanding whether in fact we need to go back over it, is the conversation about whether in fact you feel more confident now to go ahead and do it. So again, at the bottom of the screen, I'd love you to type in, or just to click yes or no about the polling of whether you feel more confident now to go ahead and look at innovation in a very different way than perhaps you did only a few minutes ago. So again, the numbers are rising. Thank you for that. And we're getting a huge response. Again, we're up to about 60% of the vote. So thank you to all of you for taking this poll. And I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled. Thank you. But it's an incredible, overwhelming yes. But what we have is 100%. So this process, again, is a way that you can chunk down what it means for you and what innovation might be able to do for you. So thank you for that. So now what I want to do is to introduce you to somebody incredible. I've said in all of the promotion before this that there is a product, there is this 7-step process that I've developed, and one of them is a giveaway. And this morning we've chosen the person that wins that. And Leanne Bennett is the incredible person that I'm looking forward to working with over the next while as she works her way through this program. Leanne heads up a company called AMA, and I'm going to ask her to come on with us and to have a conversation about what she does and where she is. So, Leanne, if you're about, can I ask you to say hello, to unmute yourself? And
hello. Hi, Morris.
See you there. Hello. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, Leanne, tell me firstly about you and your business.
Yes, so Artistry of Makeup Academy the company was launched over 20 years ago, and the idea came from really. I was a young mum. I got married quite young, and I had a couple of children, and I needed to have a career that I could work around the family. So I went off and studied makeup artistry and beauty therapy. And then there were a lot of other women around me who also wanted to have a career that could work around their family. So after having that initial success of starting a makeup business, I thought, well, you know what, I can teach this, and maybe I can teach some other people to become makeup artists. So it started very small. I started in a $20 a night hall, rented a $20 a night hall above like an RSL club, I guess. And I just put ads in the local paper and got women to come and do training. And then over the years, we've become nationally recognised, offer nationally recognised qualifications, and we've expanded now into the Western Sydney suburbs. And we probably train 50 to 70 makeup artists and beauty practitioners a year.
Most incredible. Now, we had a brief conversation just before, and I'd love to share with us. You said that in the last few months, like many of us, you've had to innovate. Tell me what would have happened if you hadn't innovated. And then, if you can, tell me what it is that you did to innovate.
Yeah, so majority of our students are mums, or they're women who are working in other industries and are wanting to create that sort of side hustle business, if you like. And our price point, I guess, for the courses, we package together qualifications as well as makeup kits. So it's around the $4,000 mark and upwards for a training course. And it's fee for service, so we don't get any government funding. So we're really marketing to that market that has money, that they're working. And, you know, basically COVID hit, as we know, and now we've got a big pool of people who are not working and basically couldn't afford our courses. And more importantly, they were scared to come. We were closed down from the 25th of March. Being in the beauty industry, we were closed down in Sydney for a period of about 8 weeks, 10 weeks or so. And so during that time, I'm like, okay, what do we do? I don't know. So we had been producing some content that we'd taken about a year and a half up until that point where we wanted to create an online course. And we'd never really been confident enough to launch it or to throw it out to the market because, you know, makeup's such a hands-on thing. We're thinking, how can we actually do this justice? And so basically within a period of 3 weeks, myself and the team launched a very small online product. And now that's actually developed into an entry level, a lower entry level product that students can use as a stepping stone to our bigger products.
It's incredible. I mean, one of the reasons to innovate, of course, is because of the absolute need. As you said, like all of us in small business, in startups, in SMEs, we're faced with a dilemma. And there are only two choices. We either survive or we die. And you, I, and everyone listening now has chosen the former, that we're going to survive, we're going to thrive. And for you, it was really pivoting. Again, I'd suggest around that question of why. I mean, why you exist, obviously your core love, and then finding a new way to deliver that. Can I ask you from our conversation this morning, the takeaway for you, was there any particular part of what I talked about or what we talked about that resonates with you or that you want to take forward?
Yeah, definitely. I think the concept of, like what you talked about, innovation, that we think perhaps it's got to be some big thing. And, you know, I just love the concept of small little incremental change and just tweaking all those little things and finding what works and actually do more of that and then stopping what doesn't work. So I think, it's common sense, but, you know, common sense isn't that common as they say.
And that's absolutely what we find, and I absolutely agree. So thank you very, very much for that, and congratulations again. I am so looking forward to working with you over the next few months and the crew at AMA, and we'll come back from time to time and let our viewers, let the people on board today know about your success and the sorts of things that you're able to achieve, because I want to continue to plug you, importantly.
Thank you.
So thank you very, very much for taking the time this morning.
Thanks, Morris.
Continue to be well.
Will do. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, thank you for that. So I want to take us then into a conversation. The conversation is that this morning we've spent a lot of time looking at the future of the world, and especially around the notion of innovation, about how you and I can take our business, your startup, your SME, how you can take it from where it is to where you know in your heart of hearts, in your soul, that you want it to be. It is really by innovating. It's by looking at what can be done and then breaking it down and then putting all of those into action. And as I've said, one of the things, with your permission, that I would like to take you through is the program that we've just talked about with Leanne, and that our conversation this morning is based around. So in the program, I cover all of the territory we've talked about this morning, plus a whole lot more. And it's, of course, done at a much slower pace and much more in depth. So with your permission, I'd love to take you through the Futurist Innovation Hack and explain to you how we might be able to work together to achieve your innovation goals. So the first thing is that the first package I've called DIY, which is do it yourself. It's based on a 6-week video program. So it takes about 6 weeks to cover in total. In that, we start up, you and I, with a 60-minute one-on-one mentoring session, where we'll get together, we'll talk about your business, we'll make sense out of what it is. I'll share with you my thoughts about your business, your industry, my thoughts about how you might be able to best use the program, and then give you a guide for what's ahead and answer, of course, any questions that you have about it. So we'll spend an hour getting to know each other and then making sure that the product is absolutely ready for you. And normally that's around the cost of $590 to have that kind of one-on-one session conversation with me. The next bit are the 26 step-by-step videos that I've put together, ranging from literally 2 minutes through to about 16, 17 minutes. They're conversations we will have literally like this. It's in the same format. I've kept it very low key on purpose. I want it to be as if it's a conversation between us. So each video will come out to you about every 3 to 6 days. You'll get 1 or 2 videos that will talk specifically about an area of innovation. It'll also have a set of activities that you can do with it. And those videos are valued at $1,829. I'm always available by email with a 24 turnaround when you join this program. And those emails are about $145 per. And you can send me emails with a 24 turnaround, asking me your questions, asking me how I would go about it, or sharing, more importantly, your ideas. I would love to know and to be your sounding board for what it is that you're thinking about. I also run a monthly mastermind roundtable, innovation roundtable. In the same format as here, we get together with a small group of people where we deep dive every month into a topic or an issue that I think is particularly important, something I'd like the group to be aware of. And then we take a measurement of the group. We share our ideas, share our findings, share our resources and our problems. And that virtual seat every month for an hour is a $395 cost. There are also imagination cards I spoke to you before about. They are those things, each one of them. We had a look at some of them in the program itself, and you'll get a set of those. Again, inspirational tools, and in digital format, they sell for $40 online. And of course, that program can be started at any time, which I think means it's priceless, because literally in the middle of the night, if you decide to join me, and I hope you'll do it sooner than that you can jump on board and we can be working together literally within a matter of moments. The total value for that, if you could buy all the individual components, is just under $3,000. But of course, as a package, I want you to join me. I want you to be able to innovate your world. So I've put the program down to $500. It's 2 by $250 monthly payments. I've also put together, based on the advice of others, that really some people would prefer more me time. And that's not true of my family, but it's true of many others. And I call this the Do It Together program. It takes 12 weeks. And what we do is we have our startup session together, our 1 hour, which is $590 as before. But I also supplement that now with a fortnightly one-on-one 30-minute conversation where just you and I, every 2 weeks, will touch base. I'll hold you accountable for what you should have done. You'll hold me accountable for what I promised to do for you. And together we'll have a look at the material you've covered and also the material you're about to cover and answer any other questions. So we will have 5 sessions together in that period. And that is $1,175 alone. The videos, of course, come to you on a frequency of every 3 to 6 days. The email assistance, in that case, is 12-hour turnaround, and that's $180. So I'll get to your emails faster than I'm able to get to other people's. And because I know that there is such fertile ground and such incredible conversations had at our monthly meetings, I want you to come to not one of them, but 3 of them. So there are 3 seats, 1 each month for you at my next 3 virtual mastermind tribe meetings. And of course, the postcards as well. You can start that anytime. And again, I'm hoping you'll do that relatively soon. And the program, if that you were to buy that individually, all of its components, would be just under $5,000. At this stage, online, it's valued at 3 payments of $333 or just under $1,000. The purpose of bringing you all online today is that I want to innovate this product. I need you to do it. And I think there is absolute value for us both working together through this. I really want to see what you can make of it and how we can grow Australian and international businesses using this program. So for this morning and for the first 5 people, legitimately only 5 in each. So in the first 5 people to buy the DIY program, I've dropped that price down to $300. You can pay in installments if you wish. If we're going to do it together, where we spend time together every fortnight and we take it at a 12-week program, then again, I've discounted that down to 3 installments of $200 each or $600 for that program. Huge discount, and they are only for the first 5 people. I will go back to the original price after 5 people have subscribed to both of them. So I would love you to join me in either of those programs, the do-it-yourself or the DIY. I know there's absolute value in it. I know that together we're going to make sure that you are forward-facing, that you are able to innovate. We will take apart your business and we will rebuild it step by step. And we will do that with the overlay of what's happening already around the world. That's what I'll bring to you and what you'll get through our one-on-ones and masterminds. You'll have a fertile landscape, a most incredible place for that to happen. Now, if you would love to join me, and I'm sincerely hoping you will, then you can find the program at morrisfuturist.podia.com. Or for those that have their mobile phone handy, you'll see a QR code in the top corner. You can click on that and that will take you to immediately where you need to be. So I'm hoping that you will join me. I want you to be one of the first 5 people in both of those programs to come on board so that together we can innovate, we can evolve your business. More importantly, it will give you the tools, the ongoing tools that you can take away and use forever. This material is absolutely recyclable by you. I've been recycling it for 30 years and evolving it. You will do the same. Once you've got the basics down, once you see the pattern and the rhythm, you will find it joyful to be able to innovate. And that's what I'm wishing for all of you, that together we can innovate into the most incredible world ahead. Because really, as I've said to you already this morning, the reality is that the future is an attitude. An attitude is catching, and I want to be the person that gives it to you. So, I've now taken you through innovation as I see it, broken it down for you, and worked my way through my program, and am hoping that you will join me. I want to thank you very, very much for joining me this morning. I'm enraptured about how many people have been online and how robust the conversation has been. I'm looking forward to seeing many of you as I meet you through the DIY and DIT programs. and wish you the most incredible future full of innovation. May the world ahead exceed your expectations of it. And I look forward again to seeing the world that you and I create. Have an incredible future, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.